Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're talking about videography struggles. So anything that you're challenged or struggling with at the moment, we're going to discuss in depth today, whether it be finding clients, bringing in work, keeping your income up, struggling with sound, lighting. It could be something to do with kind of your perception of your work. So kind of if you're anxious about the work you're doing or kind of have imposter syndrome or things like that. All of these things we're going to try and discuss. I'm going to start off by discussing some of my challenges and some of the things that I'm struggling with. But please drop a comment below and let me know what you're struggling with, because I want this to be a dialogue between us. We've already got a few comments in there, so that's great. But yeah, I'm going to be talking about my stuff, but please, somebody said they can't hear. Let me just try and... Oh, audio is fine. Okay. I have film must be something your end because the audio is fine in the comments. Thanks for that, Mark. Yep. So today we're going to be talking about challenges that we're facing. Comment below. Let me know what your challenges are and what you're struggling with, because at this time, COVID's kind of everywhere. I'm calling from London today, and we're in full lockdown. So very challenging time in terms of kind of finding clients, making sure you're staying safe and staying healthy, but also having kind of income coming in. So yeah, it's a challenging time for all of us. And I know at the moment there's a kind of political upheaval in certain parts of the world as well. So I just hope you're all staying safe and all staying sane. But today's stream is just kind of us to have a dialogue and to kind of support each other. It's going to be me starting off, and then I'll have 3 guests coming on. So the first guest is going to be a gaffer. The second guest is going to be someone who runs the production on a high-end media agency. And the third one's going to be a really interesting guy who does kind of like run and gun filming on boats. So a really kind of varied guest list today. But yeah, we're starting off with just me. So like I said, if you've got any comments, drop them below. But yeah. So the number one thing that I'm kind of struggling with at the moment is kind of making sure there's enough work coming in and making sure that kind of clients are coming to me. So if I can just explain kind of where I'm coming from. I'm about kind of 2.5 years into my freelance videography journey. So kind of the first year, you're kind of feeling it out. Comment below if you've kind of struggled that first year. But yeah, the first year is kind of feeling things out, building a client list up, progressing, getting bigger and bigger budgets. And then, yeah, so just before COVID, kind of January, February, March, I was doing the best business I've ever done, taking on some higher paying clients, traveling a lot for work around Europe. So it was really great and kind of things were looking up. But then kind of COVID hit, and as you guys can probably attest to, it kind of knocked us for 6, and kind of the work that we did have might have been cancelled, and new clients might have been put off by COVID, or maybe their budgets got cut, maybe their staffing got cut and they weren't able to take on videographers anymore. So a lot of factors that have really kind of pushed us back a little bit. So comment below if you've had a similar experience. But yeah, so just before COVID, best business ever, then COVID hits, and yeah, I think if you're a more experienced videographer, so if you've been doing it for kind of like 3 to 5 years, 10 years plus, you might already have like a bank of clients that are kind of loyal. You might have retainers, kind of monthly rolling payments that clients are giving to you. So that could kind of keep you afloat during COVID. If you're that kind of level of experience, comment below and let me know how your experience has been as someone, that's had a little bit more years under their belt in videography. But as I was fairly new and, I was on a good trajectory, but because I was fairly new, I didn't have that, backup clients or retainer clients to fall back on. So it's kind of been a bit of a learning curve for me, and I've kind of refocused my business and tweaked a few things behind the scenes, and, hoping to go into 2021 and grow even more. We've got a few comments coming in. Dan Korn says, I think you're excellent at what you do, and you were going about things the right way before COVID. Thanks, Dan. Dan is actually a videographer based in London as well, who I've done work with. So, yeah, he's like a commercial events videographer, really talented guy. Learned a lot from him. Great to see you here, Dan. And Dan says, yeah, no one could expect the effect COVID would have has affected all levels. Yeah, exactly. And Dan does a lot of events. I did a lot of events as well. So that was kind of, yeah, it was just completely cancelled, as you probably all know. If you do events, anything kind of in person was just cancelled. If you're watching, just drop the stream a like, just because it helps kind of boost things in the algorithm and lets more people see the stream and kind of get that conversation going. So just drop it a like if you haven't already. That would really help me. And we're just talking about videography struggles. So if you haven't already, drop a comment below and tell me what you're struggling with. So yeah, number one was for me kind of finding clients, getting work coming in. Number two, I'm kind of trying to learn a bit more about lighting, because lighting is something that can make or break your production. So we've actually got a guest, the first guest coming on in about 10-15 minutes is a gaffer, a lighting expert, if you don't know. And he's going to be talking a little bit about his struggles, but he's a lighting expert. He's been on the stream before, so if you haven't watched it, go back and watch that one. His name is David Mudre. But I've been trying to learn a little bit more about lighting, because lighting's one of those things that, yeah, it can really elevate your production. Because, you know, if you've got, you know, it's been repeated quite a few times, but it is true. If you've got an iPhone and really good lighting, it's going to look better than a high-end cinema camera with no lighting. And that's kind of like a little bit facetious and a little bit kind of an unfair comparison, but it's really true. Like, lighting can really make or break what you're doing. So I've kind of, through my live streams and through my YouTube channel, I've tried to kind of learn a bit more about lighting. So learning about, you know, having practical things. So we've got the little lamp over here kind of shining on the backlight, but we've also got another light to kind of supplement that. So kind of making lights look like they're coming from a practical light. That's something I've learned quite a lot about. Making shape with lighting. So kind of my backdrop here is supposed to look like blinds. It's just kind of tape over a light just to get those slats. Yeah, and just I think lighting is one of those things that you can never stop learning with it, because there's always something new to learn. And I'm by no means an expert. I'm only just starting my journey in lighting, but it's something that's really rewarding as well, because, you know, you can really kind of level up your productions without really spending much money, because some of the lighting things you can use are stuff you could find in like a DIY store, or kind of you can use things like sheets, shining lights through sheets and things like that. So you don't have to spend money, and it's something you can get really creative with, and you can kind of get a taste for the kind of lighting you like. So do you like something a bit softer? Do you like something with kind of more harsh shadows? Things like that. You can really get creative with it. I'm just going to address some of your comments. Aya Film says, what camera do you use for event? Do you mean the events that I'm shooting, or do you mean this live stream? Previously, I was using a Canon C200 big cinema camera with loads of EF glass, but I recently sold that because basically I had a job where I was shooting a promo video for a school, and yeah, I was holding the C200 with a 18-35 lens, heavy lens, on a gimbal all day, and yeah, my arms just felt like they were going to drop off. Like, I tried to keep my fitness level up anyway, but I was really struggling. So kind of holding that camera all day and my arms are going to drop off, and I'm just like, do you know what, I'm going to move to a smaller camera. So now I'm using the A7S III, which is what I'm filming this live on right now. If you're curious, it's on the Sigma 24-70 f2.8, which is an excellent little kit lens for it. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. We've got a comment from Nikolai Brix, who's actually going to be our guest later on the show. Nikolai says, most of my jobs were travel. Everything's gone in 24 hours. Had to change focus and get old clients back. Yeah, and I think that kind of speaks to a lot of our experiences, really, because it did feel like Nikolai said, in 24 hours, it feels like, you know, the rug was pulled out from under us, and we kind of like left thinking, you know, everything we thought we understood about our business, about the way we work with clients, about the way clients come in, about the way we retain clients, was really changed in 24 hours. And like Nikolai said, it really had to kind of refocus our approach to business and our approach to videography. Comment below if you've had a similar issue with kind of 24 hours, everything changing, and kind of, have any of you guys pivoted to something new? Because I know a lot of people have pivoted to offering kind of like live streaming, or kind of editing Zoom videos and things like that. Comment below if you've kind of done a bit of that and pivoted into stuff that you can do from home. I know a lot of people have been doing that. Mars Attack 69 says, I think this last year has taught me that having a diverse set of skills is more important than anything. This is one of the few times being a jack of all trades is actually really useful. Thanks for that. Yeah, I totally agree. As videographers, we're asked to do 1,000 things. So typically, there's different kind of terms that people use to describe themselves. So some people might call themselves a videographer. Some people might say they're a DP or a cinematographer or a camera operator or a storyteller or whatever. But basically, we all do the same thing. It just kind of depends on where you are. But typically, I think of a videographer as someone who's kind of more of like a one-man band, maybe like a small crew, but they're being asked to kind of multitask and really be knowledgeable in a number of disciplines. So that can be kind of operating the camera, planning the lighting, assembling lighting, kind of making sure the audio is good. You don't have a crew of kind of a gaffer, a lighting expert. You don't have a sounder. You don't have a director. Quite often, like Mars Attack said, you're solo. So being a jack of all trades, no pun intended, is really important. And that's kind of where I was coming at with kind of learning lighting as well, because you learn how to use how to set manual exposure, how to kind of use the camera. That doesn't take too long. That's kind of like 6 months to a year maybe to master exposure and things like that, and setting white balance. So that's the easy part. The hard bit comes with kind of the creative decisions. So the sound, the lighting, and everything that Mars Attack said. Thanks for that. That was a really great question, and I hope I answered it properly. So Mark Clark says, the best asset during the pandemic is a wife with a good government job. That's true. What does your wife do, Mark? But having a spouse or a partner that has kind of like a regular job or a well-paid job can be really helpful. I know a lot of people out there are really struggling at the moment, so I think we should be thankful for whatever we have at the moment. People are way worse off than we are, so absolutely count your blessings. I hope that answered your question, Mark. Let me know what your spouse does. Dan just replying to my talk about C200. C200 is a heavy camera, yes. Dan is a C200 owner, but too heavy for me. I mean, if you're kind of hand holding it and you've kind of got an easy rig, or you're kind of holding it close like that, it's not too bad. But I think the fact that I was kind of what gimbal was I using? I was on the Xeon Crane 3S, so it's the one with kind of like the handles like this, so you're kind of holding it out away from your body, and it's just really hard work. And especially like I'm not as young as I used to be now. I know I'm only kind of like 30, but 31, but as you get older, you kind of those aches and pains start to come in, and you need to think about kind of longevity. So I know a lot of people get around that by having like an easy rig, so like a support system for a cinema camera, but I didn't have the budget for that at the moment, so I downsized. But I might go back to having a cinema camera again. Let me know in the comments below, have you bought any new gear this year even? And kind of what challenges you're facing. Let's keep this going. There's some really great comments so far. Let's have a few more. So Tamara says, before I had more chance to work on short films or promos, but now most of my work taking product videos and photographs in my home setup and video editing. So Tamara, like I said, has really pivoted away from kind of doing short films and promos, and focused on kind of stuff that she can do at home. So that's really good to hear. Tamara, what's your situation? What kind of stuff are you shooting? And where are you kind of commenting in from today? Thanks for your question. That's very kind, Dan. Dan says I'm a young whippersnapper. I did a workout the other day and I didn't feel it, but still, yeah. So I think I've said enough about my challenges. So finding work, lighting. Also, I want to say a quick note about kind of your own perception of yourself. So kind of imposter syndrome. You may have heard this term, but it's kind of the idea that kind of people at all levels experience it. So it's not just me, and it's not kind of beginners, people of all levels, but it's kind of the belief that kind of the work you do is not good enough, or you don't deserve to be where you are, because that you're always looking up to people that are higher level of kind of way more experience. Their stuff looks amazing, it sounds amazing, it's lit amazing. So imposter syndrome is something that I struggle with. Sometimes I look back at the work and just think, oh, that's terrible. Like, why did I make that creative decision? Why didn't I move the camera here? Why didn't I position my subject differently? Why didn't I make more use of the space? Just things like that. And I think that's healthy, but I think you've got to remember that everybody's at their own level. So comparing yourself to people that have kind of maybe 10 years down the line is not really a fair comparison. And it can be really good to have friends and kind of have colleagues that are in kind of filmmaking, videography industry that you can rely on just to give you honest feedback, because sometimes you can be your own worst enemy. So you can be looking inward and thinking, oh, this is terrible, or how could I do this? But really, it might be a small problem that nobody else would even notice. So having really good colleagues, really good friends in the industry, just to bounce ideas off and just say, hey, can you check out my new promo video, or can you check out my new YouTube video, or my new music video, whatever you produce. Have a good network around you of people you can just send stuff to. Facebook's a really good tool for this. So there's so many groups around videography, filmmaking, lighting, everything that we do. There's really great groups in all of the disciplines, full of people that are willing to kind of give you constructive feedback. You might encounter a few nasty people, but you'll find that anywhere. But most people are really kind of generous with their time and their feedback, and will be willing to kind of help you through any struggles you might be having. So good network is what I can really recommend. Mars Attacks says, this is a good time to plan new things to do. Maybe write that script that you always wanted, or work on that shortlist for a project that you can do when things are a bit more normal. Yeah, so planning, taking stock, again, really useful. And yeah, using the downtime to just learn a new skill, maybe even not even to do with videography or filmmaking, learning something like a hobby, or getting fit, things like that. It's not all about the industry, but using the time to educate yourself. So we're going to have our first guest come shortly. But if you've got any more comments, drop them below and I'll answer those first. We're talking about struggles, challenges in the industry. Struggles and challenges that you might be having to do with videography in the industry. Billy Crow, welcome. How are you doing? Billy Crow, friend of the show. He says the Hurlburt Academy is amazing. Yeah, so if you don't know, Hurlburt Academy is a really great kind of, Billy, it's a Facebook group, right? And you also have kind of online training. I think it's mostly to do with lighting, but it has kind of filmmaking as well, videography. Really great resource. I think David, who's our guest, is actually a member of Hurlburt Academy, so he'll be able to talk a little bit more about that. But great suggestion there, Billy. Rolf, welcome. How are you doing? Rolf says, I haven't figured out how to pivot into doing video-centric things online for clients. I'm also concerned your typical business video is falling out of favor. Thoughts? Let me just read your question again. Yeah, so video-centric things online for clients. It can be difficult because, like myself, I was mainly doing kind of in-person events. So, conferences, meetups, things like that. And kind of talking head videos, things like that. And kind of my selling point was, I might not be the best videographer in the world, but I really like working with clients, and I really value that kind of collaborative work, and really kind of pride myself in having good, client relationships, and, really excelling in that whilst my videography skills are developing. So I hear you with that. Like I've also found it difficult to pivot into stuff just because we couldn't see this coming, this global pandemic. So, I think we're all kind of on that journey. So, Ralph, stick with it, and hopefully, you can, like editing. So, if you've got like corporate clients, they might have like Zoom meetings that they do, or they might have kind of virtual conferences. Maybe reaching out to them and saying, hey, can I edit you, cut down some of these conference calls to maybe kind of bite-sized content, sell that to them. even like offer them kind of Instagram packages, so like IGTV, short kind of content that way. You could do that. Really offering to run live streams remotely. So I'm using Ecamm Live to run this stream at the moment, but you can use live streaming software to run your client streams remotely. So managing all the guests and making sure, like I've got here, making sure there's graphics on display. So Rolf, maybe that's something you could look into. Thank you for your question. Billy Crow says, talking about the Hilbert Academy, yes, they have all kinds of subcategories. David introduced me to it. Yep, David, our next guest, who I'll bring on shortly. I just want to get through these questions before I do so. Dan says, I must confess to being unmotivated during lockdown. I have, however, tried to master my gear a little bit more. You don't always have time. Also getting to grips with Topaz Video and DaVinci Resolve, etc. Yeah, I think like DaVinci Resolve is let me know how you're getting on, if you've got any kind of resources for that, because I think DaVinci Resolve is the future in terms of video editing, regardless of what you use, whether you're kind of like a Premiere, Final Cut editor. I use Final Cut. I think that's the future, really, because it offers a full package. So you've got kind of editing, color, you've got effects, you've got everything, audio, you've got everything in one package. And some of the color tools are so powerful. Like, you can isolate specific colors, track them, target certain areas of the frame super easily. And they've kind of got this advanced tracking feature. I can't remember what it's called. Magic Mask. Yeah. Magic Mask, which kind of, you just select a person, it'll just track it through the frame. So Resolve is learning gear and learning software. Excellent. Excellent shout there, Dan. So Edgar says, how is the competition for filmmakers to source new clients during pandemic? I'd assume many events, boys and girls, have shifted to production. Yeah, I think competition's gone up a lot because people are kind of doing stuff remotely. So it's harder to get work. There's a lot more people competing for that work. But I think with creative thinking and pivoting, we can sort of get around that. So there's always options available to us. Thank you, Edgar. Great question. Okay, so we're going to bring in our first guest, who is a gaffer called David Moudre. David, how are you doing?
Good, and I didn't plan this, I promise.
Yeah, nice callback there. Let me know if the volume's okay, because it's looking good for me. But yeah, David, how you doing?
I'm alive, so that's positive.
That's the main thing.
Yeah, no, so, I mean things are going. Just been filming a little bit more stuff lately, trying to get more motivation on the YouTube side of things.
So what kind of content are you doing for YouTube?
Lighting tutorials mainly. It's so hard too, because it all ties into the struggle side of things. Because I mean, as a gaff, like I had probably $8,000 to $10,000 worth of work right at last March. Everything was like I was getting more and more consistent work with the same kind of people. I had one big project actually that I was really excited for, because I was going to get to like fly to a bunch of different places to shoot the different parts of it. But that completely vanished. I'm not even sure that company's still a company anymore. So that's been that. Last year was really, really tough. I was able to I was able to have unemployment, so that was helpful. I know a lot of my friends who are in the industry, because of their states or because of just the way that things were, they didn't qualify, and that put a lot of people in a rough way. But it's scary, because I don't know. I don't want to have to take risks in order to do the thing that I really love doing. So it's been hard to try to find something else to scratch that itch in the meantime, if that makes sense. Luckily, like we're talking about, I have a spouse who is able to support both of us for the meantime. She is an ICU nurse, and that's a whole other discussion, but it's another source of stress. But but yeah, it's the pivot. I think the pivot thing is really what a lot of people are, or like you said, is what a lot of people are having to go through right now and kind of talk about. and back to the YouTube thing, it's just the hardest thing that I'm struggling with right now, since we're talking about struggle, is the consistency side of it, and being able to feel like you consistently have something to offer, that
Hmm.
feeling like your voice has value and you're not just regurgitating things that other people have said, just doing it in a different way. And that's the main thing, I guess, that I struggle with is trying to figure out ways to offer value, but not be just saying the same thing, you know, that everyone else has already put out a video on this week.
Yeah, so you mentioned you're doing kind of YouTube videos, but do you want to just quickly tell people a little bit about, because you're a gaffer, you're a lighting expert, but what kind of work were you doing before the pandemic hit? What was your kind of focus?
Yeah, I had. Well, it was. I mean, it was all very, very, very intentional. I've been a photographer since I started my photography company when I was about 18, and I just this past year was kind of letting the photography URL die, and all the previous clients that I did photography for really was like, hey, I'm not going to be doing this anymore, doing the videography thing. I'm just solely going to be working as a gaffer and trying to be brought onto projects where that role can be something that happens. And that was really starting to happen at the beginning of 2020. I was getting on quite a few. I had been working for a studio in Richmond. I had kind of been one of their go-to folks that they would always call for the medium to larger projects. It would be me and my buddy as a key grip. So that was awesome. Always getting to work with a solid budget and a solid amount of gear. And they have a huge white cyc in their studio, which is always a blast to work on those. It's just like a giant sandbox. And then I've been doing like I said, I had a project with a movie theater screen company that I was really excited about that had fallen through, but that was the one that was going to be a little bit bigger, and was I was going to be able to bring in some more folks on it, and really really try to act as a producer in a way, but it would have been my second. It would have been a recurring job for this company, in hopes to try to get them on some kind of retainer. But yet again, that all kind of fell through, and so just trying to figure out a way to pivot into a teaching space without feeling like you're just just another voice is kind of the issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and that's something I've struggled with as well, trying to, establish a YouTube channel as well. And that's kind of how I arrived at these live streams, because I wanted it to be, people from around the world in different disciplines sharing their experiences, not just kind of me telling people stuff, because, I'm not an expert. I don't know what I'm doing. So it's good to kind of have people from all disciplines come along. And I think, I don't know if you agree, David, but I think the social aspect of what we do is really important. So even if we can't physically be on set with people, keeping in touch with people on Facebook during these things, really important.
Yeah, I mean, I've made a point. It's me and my key grip and my key grip and my best boy both, and their significant others. It's kind of been funny because all of us, since the pandemic started, we've gotten to celebrate every one of our 6 birthdays on a Zoom call together. And so, like, some weeks will go by, we're like, hey, we got to have a little hangout. And so we'll get together and, on Zoom and have a little chat. And then, some months will go by and we'll get a group text and be like, so guess what? It's my birthday. And, time to have our, our virtual birthday calls like everyone's been getting. So that's been really, really helpful. And then we had some friends swung by and did a little like contactless drop off thing in the parking lot with masks on. So we got to kind of wave from afar, so just to see their faces from 40 feet away was still really nice. But I think the collaboration, like you said, is so important, and I think these live streams really tap into that, because it's able to have conversations. That's the other thing I miss too, is just being able to sit around and shoot the shit with people whose opinions about filmmaking and industry stuff I respect, and being able to just talk about it and figure out what's a possible new project that's coming on, or things that what do you like, what films have you seen lately. Just I think the usual stuff that is the bedrock kind of what makes those filmmaking teams kind of click together. But the other thing too with this time that we all have is to just try to make yourself a sponge as much as possible. I've been digging into some of my old lighting books that I have like read, some of, but not actually finished. Some of the classic ones. I'll be buying some more here soon, and then going back through the Hurlbut Academy as well, because he's been putting out a lot of new stuff lately related to the bigger kind of gaffer type things that I do, that I'm really, really eager to watch as well. He's got a bunch of new content coming this fall or not this fall, sorry, this spring for editing and colorists, all specifically going back to tying it into DaVinci Resolve, because they used DaVinci Resolve to do the entire post-production pipeline for the movie Safety that just came out on Disney Plus.
Oh, okay, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, so a lot of his like tutorials and whatnot that are coming are going to be around how they used it on Safety and kind of showing and breaking that down. So, because I really want to get better at doing that side, because I want to eventually go into DPing stuff. So it's just so hard to like figure out where I want to put more energy into the gaffing side while still trying to remain somewhat relevant as possibly being a DP. In the next 5 or 6 years, making that pivot again. But it's I don't know. There's always more stuff to learn. So it's just like I kind of get overwhelmed some days when I'm like, all right, I'm going to focus. I'll do this for an hour, and then I'll do this, and then like 3 hours later, you're like, I've watched 5 wandering DP breakdown videos, and my eyes are bleeding. But
yeah, Wandering DP is a really great shout. Really good channel. His YouTube videos look like a movie, like a well-produced movie. Like his talking head stuff. I'm just
my wife into the room the other day when I was watching it. I was like, look at this. Remember the last one that I was just watching? Look at, it's the same foreground, but look at the background. He just made those 2 little tweaks, and it looks so different, and it still looks stunning. And I'm just like,
yeah. To see someone really bring in those high-end kind of lighting techniques to just like a talking head YouTube video, it's like that's kind of what I aspire to. I'll maybe never get there, but having
that's
something.
Why it takes me so long.
Yeah, man. Like it takes me a long time to set up this setup, but do you want to answer some questions while you're here?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
Cool. So, my overlays are a bit all over the place. Just give me a second. So Mariam says, awesome stream. So lighting, I need to stick a camera, tablet for teleprompter reasons, and a ring light, ideally on one stable tripod. Is that realistic? What gear would you recommend?
It's definitely realistic. I can only speak to what I personally have. I have a teleprompter from Glide Gear. It's a little hefty, but I mean it'll work with any iPad up to I think an 11-inch iPad. So if you don't need one that big, they do make smaller ones that work for just like that you can lay cell phones into. I can't remember the brand of the one that makes the cell phone teleprompter, but it's pretty decent. They're all still sub $200 a piece. I would not put a ring light on it personally. I think ring lights look terrible. So agreed. I would if you put the camera on top of the tripod and then you have it attached to the teleprompter, you should have some anchor point off the top of the camera, or you can just do a little grabby off the tripod leg. And I would put an aperture MC on one side of the lens, kind of up at 45 degrees. So if this is the lens looking through the teleprompter, the MC is on like a
hang on, David. Bring it down a little bit, because I know Mariam, and she's a bit more kind of entry level. Just for context, I think she's looking for something a bit. So that for the stuff that she's got, what could she do with that ring light?
Does she already have a ring light?
I think so. Sorry, Mariam, just clarify that. But if she doesn't have to buy any new equipment, what would you?
No, you don't. I'm just saying don't put the ring light around the lens. The ring light will work fine. Just put it over on one side, and preferably put a piece of paper in front of it to diffuse it a little bit. Just because the bare LEDs tend to be harsh on most people's skin. Yeah,
and also you get that kind of circular light in someone's eye, and some people like that, but
good.
I'm not big on it.
Good. You're doing like makeup tutorials, but that's about it.
Yeah,
personal
agreed.
Preference thing there.
I think it's because ring lights are quite cheap, and they come with a lot of entry-level kits. So, and people see them quite a lot on, I see a lot of influencers using them. But correct me if I'm wrong, David, it's still quite a harsh light, right? Unless you're kind of diffusing it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them still, the ring lights will have a little bit of built-in frost on them, so they're not going to be like bare LEDs blasting people in the eye. But even still, it's an on-axis source that's getting rid of all shape on the face, because shape from the face is made by shadow and light. So like you see I have a nice bright side over here, and I have some shadow side over here. Yeah, it just gets rid of all of that. And I mean, depending upon the lens that's used with it, it can be flattering, but most of the time it's not. It's a look. And if you like that look, that's totally cool. I don't think it looks that great. I think for a lot of the stuff that you like, these web conferences, slightly off to one side key is going to be more flattering in most cases.
So yeah, Mariam, if you've got the ring light, don't put it here. Put it kind of up here. So if you can see, my light and David's light as well is kind of shining at 45 degrees and slightly above us, and it'll just give you that nice shadow over here. Also, if you want a really cheap way to make it softer, get a sheet or a shower curtain, right, David? Just like put that in front of it, and that'll really, soften the light for you.
Absolutely. I highly recommend medium frosted shower curtain. If you go to any like you can get it for like $2 or $3 at Walmart or any bed bath supply store. Yeah.
We've got a follow up from Mariam. So she said, I've got a very bad quality light with a breaking tripod bit. I think we can all,
gotcha.
Identify with that when we're starting out. So I'm a bit new to light I'm open to new light suggestions for sure. Sorry, David. Yeah. So you were saying the MC.
Okay. Yeah. If you're just doing small stuff.
You still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, if you're just doing smaller stuff and you just need to light your face and MC, or even just if you don't want to spend that, you can get a clamp light from like Home Depot. That's just a light socket with a metal dish, and you can put a tungsten bulb in there and shoot it through a shower curtain, or bounce it into the crook of the ceiling right in front of you, or the wall that's kind of right in front of you.
Yeah, white walls are your friend, really. If you're kind of white walls or white ceiling, quite often, sometimes, if you're kind of in a nice kind of, if you're in a living room and you've got light coming in through the windows, if you want to make it look like the light from that window is filling the whole room, just shooting a light up at a white ceiling just gives you a nice kind of blanket lift to the room if it's a bit dark. So that's, yeah, I've used that countless times. Even on client jobs, I'll shoot a light up into a ceiling if they've got a white ceiling, or just stuff like that. Is those basic techniques are really useful. Mariam says, nice one, thanks for the answers. Thank you for the question, really great questions. I know David loves answering all of these. Billy says, if the light has to be on axis, at least raise it up a little bit to have some down shadow. That's a really good point. So instead of having the shadow over here, you'd have, is it called butterfly lighting, David? Is that the right term?
It's called butterfly when you put a bounce underneath to bounce back.
Got you.
So that's what I was going to say. If you do want to put it above camera, you can just lift it up a little bit to try to get some nose shadow. But then also, if you're going to do that, you want to put something like a white bounce underneath of camera to help bounce some of that light to fill in, up under your eye sockets, and then up under your chin.
So we're going to fire a few of these comments, and then we'll let David go and bring on our next guest. So Joe Element says unbleached muslin fabric is the way to go. David, I know you love that.
I do. That is one of my favorite pieces of diffusion, because I use it as diffusion and as a bounce source. I like to use it as diffusion with LED lights, specifically daylight balanced LED lights, because it adds just a little bit of warmth to it. I'll use unbleached muslin as the diffusion in a book light setup with brighter daylight LEDs. But then if I'm using tungsten, I'll tend to bounce into unbleached muslin, just because, Roger Deakins can't be wrong.
And for people that don't know, do you want to just quickly explain what unbleached muslin is and what kind of effect it provides?
Yeah, it's a type of fabric. Unbleached muslin. It's a woven type of fabric that has quite a lot. It's a very unfinished kind of fabric. It's almost rough. It's not very rough. It depends on where you get it from, but it's hard. What's a good? I'm sorry. I just lost.
So it's kind of between like something that's a bit more kind of, I'm being really basic here, but something that's a bit more kind of orange looking and something that's completely white. It's somewhere in between, right?
Yeah, because you can get bleached or unbleached muslin. Bleached muslin is really, really common. You see that a lot used as a bounce source. They sell a lot of companies sell unbleached muslin for 6 buys, for 8 buys, because it's a really popular source, or it's a really popular bounce source. But then unbleached muslin is it's the same type of fabric. It's just not bleached. So you look at the fabric, the unbleached or bleached will look white as can be in your hand, and if you lay the unbleached on top, it almost looks like tea stain, I guess would be a way to put it. Like it's a very light tan, kind of light brown. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, off-white creamish is a good descriptor.
Thanks for that breakdown, David.
It does something magical. It does something magical when you put tungsten into it as a bounce. It's awesome.
Especially on skin tones, right? It looks just amazing.
Highly recommend it. Yeah, especially for the lighter people with lighter skin tones specifically. It looks amazing.
So Marianne says, great points. We'll be looking over the recordings again to note down all of the advice. Great to hear.
Yes.
And if you've got any questions for David, just leave them below and he'll get back to you afterwards, or get in contact with him.
Feel free to message me on Instagram.
David, where can people find you on social?
Yes, I am at Mudre Gaffer on Instagram and on Twitter.
Cool.
I don't have any Twitter followers. I need more of those. Yeah, so go follow me on Twitter for sure.
I've just put that in the comments, so feel free to go follow him. But David, thanks so much for joining us today and
Jack,
sharing your challenges and your struggles. Cool. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Cool. So next we're going to be bringing on our second guest, who is a Danish filmmaker, and he's kind of someone that's working on a bit more high-end stuff. So he's just started a job at like a really high-end production company in Denmark, and so I'd like to kind of talk to him a little bit about the struggles at that higher level. As I mentioned, I'm a bit more entry level, 2 years in, so I thought it'd be really interesting to talk to him and see what he's struggling with. So Nikolai, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Do you want to just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, what you do, and maybe some of the challenges that you're facing at the moment?
Yeah, right now I just got a new job. I started 2.5 weeks ago. It's an internal production company for one of Europe's biggest fashion brand houses. We have multiple brands, clothing brands under us. I work for the biggest brand in the company, starting a new video department. So it's a big challenge. I've been freelancing for 15 years. So as I'm joking, I'm gonna have my first paycheck in 15 years very soon. It's my wife liked it very much. So yeah, the challenge for me right now is that I remember how it is to be a freelancer. A year ago, I traveled all the time. I worked 100 days a year abroad, maybe 120, 30 days. And suddenly, as I put in a comment, my business disappeared. I changed it. I had a lot of work and people reached out to me. So I was not struggling. So I remember how it is. I have all my friends in the business are still freelancing. And actually, I talked with this company for a year before COVID-19. So it's not like a panic. I changed. We started the dialogue, a year ago. And the challenge for me is how I'm, not for me, it sounds very, what call it? I want to treat my colleagues good. For example, we have a very big shoot coming up next week, a very big production. It's basically an online Copenhagen Fashion Week is canceled. We're gonna do a big online thing, record for it, and it's a huge project, and I'm gonna hire people in to do this production, and I can feel how hungry the business is. After I published, I got this job. I've maybe got 100 messages from colleagues in the business say, hey, remember me if you need a freelancing or something like that. and so I feel the kind of how bad it is right now, and I try actually not to cut wages, but hire someone in for one day there and another day there to kind of give people work. I think actually, and it's very spoiled position to be in, but I feel that, and actually I feel that the business right now is more hit than last year. And that's a big thing for, because I'm super busy. We are busy. We are working because the company is moving from brick and mortar shops to online even more. We have a lot of our own shops worldwide, so we are super busy. And I would say I would love people calling me more, or writing me, or bidding in what they could do for me. I know, as the guy who hire people now, that it's okay to contact me. I've been beforehand. It could be a little like cold canvas calling. We kind of hate that, reaching out. But I would like that people were saying, I can offer this to you, because I, I think a lot about who can I hire for this job. But maybe if I knew what you could do, it would be easier for me to think you into, kind of. So I think it's like a chance to get new clients, actually, to reach out, because we are more open. I'm more open to see what people can offer. I think that's a challenge for me, to know what people actually can do. And I think a lot of big companies had it that way. So it's a way to, yeah, as in the business, to call people. I know how difficult it is. Last year, when I had to do the change from traveling so much, all my international clients, and then reach out to Danish clients to get jobs, that was some of the most difficult I've ever done. So my suggestion is to kind of, you have to be more pushy, reaching out to people, tell what you can do, and be aware you can maybe get 100 no's, or we will look into it. But right now I need people, for example.
That's really powerful, because someone starting out a bit more kind of even earlier than me, and kind of it's something that I'm going through as well. Hearing someone that's on the hiring side, you're saying basically just get in touch with as many kind of creative directors, as many kind of people higher up on the creative ladder in these companies. Is that right? Just kind of fire out emails. And what is your preference for kind of people reaching out to you? What way do you like someone to send you, like a video message, or do you want an email or a call? What is your preference?
I'm very like straightforward. I like calls is a no-go right now, because I'm so busy. So talking to phone, I do it a lot. But an email, a Facebook message, and for my personal, if I don't answer, just message me again, because maybe I'm just busy and forget it. But and offer lower level jobs that you actually can do. So say, okay, I'm open for being a assistant something. If you really want to be a gaffer or DOP or whatever, offer yourself as a runner or a practical guy or something, because it's, for me, I want to use the same people again and again, and if they can prove every time that they're getting better, it's easier for me to hire a guy I don't know as a runner than hire him as or assistant photographer or sound guy, than hire him for high level position. That's a way to get into bigger agencies, or kind of in my company. I would rather have a new guy as an assistant next week than being like snobby. Oh, I'm a photographer, or oh, I am a gaffer. Yeah, maybe you should start as a gaffer's assistant or a photography assistant or something. I would say that have helped me before.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you brought this up, because actually I had someone contact me recently. I think when was it? Yesterday, and it was basically like a high-end company that does kind of like surfaces for like hotel lobbies and things like that, but really kind of ornate kind of tile stuff and mosaic. And anyway, so they're having this big high-end photo shoot for kind of their office and their space, and they actually reached out to me and said, do you want to be an assistant with, you know, working with a high-end photographer? And I was kind of, at first I was like, maybe I could be the one taking the photos, but then I kind of stepped back and thought, hang on, you know, this is a high-end photographer. This is a really good opportunity for me to, you know, watch other people work, like learn more about the craft, about what goes on behind the scenes, and like you said, ingratiate yourself with that agency, right? So once you're in on that lower level as a runner, as an assistant, they're going to see, they might not see your creative input, but they're going to see your work ethic, they're going to see your timekeeping, they're going to see your reliability, and whether you're actually like a nice person to work for, right?
Exactly. I look much more for how people are interacting and working as a team and doing the extra, because it's a kind of, I'm very talkative and friendly, and I don't really care about hierarchy. So I have one rule: when I come new places, I become friend with the girl in the cafeteria or doing the lunch. Look at me, I'm a little chubby. And I become friends with the practical guys, what you call him, the one who's running the premises, because then you can get everything fixed. I often also get friends with the youngest assistant on the production, because then he will work for me. You know what I mean? He would do the extra stuff for me. And I have also, when I started young, always tried to do the extra, because then you start talking. And oh, you're a photographer. Okay, let me see your portfolio. Or, oh, you want to work with light? Okay, next production, we actually need one more on the lighting department or whatever. For me, that's a better way in.
Absolutely. And kind of you've talked about hiring, but kind of you've just recently stepped into the role as in like a high-end production company. What are your challenges? Is it kind of allocate, because you must have big budgets, is it kind of allocating that budget? Is it kind of thinking about
saying no?
Saying no. Go on.
Yeah, but saying no is the biggest challenge, because I've been freelancing for 15 years, and you know, if you say no, freelancer, you lose your job. And right now, I actually made a big post on LinkedIn about it last Friday. That one of the things I've learned was that I have to say no to meetings, and just don't accept them as I would as a freelancer, because I need time to produce and perform in my key area. And I actually think, to be honest, I actually think I would have wanted to learn that early in my career, also as a freelancer. Because I can see that already after 2.5 weeks, that if a guy I want to talk to and make a job for me, if I say, hey, can we have a meeting Tuesday? And he say, no, I can do it Wednesday, or I can do it in the night, or I can do it. I would actually, because I calling him, that's because I want something from him. Then it's okay to say no, and say, no, I cannot there, I can do it there. Where I, as a freelancer, also always just have said, yes, Monday, 2:00, even that it ruined my day. Because as a freelancer, and for me now, and as a visual producer, head of my little department, basically it's only me right now, but no, it's not. It's a little complicated to explain. I still need time to produce. Next week, in a week from now, we're gonna have this huge production. I need time allocated for prep, making plans, creative brief, practical stuff, all that. And if people around this company, and I'm servicing 8 sub brands and all kind of stuff, want to have meetings all the time, I can't produce, I can't perform. So that, and I've seen that in 2.5 weeks, that I have to just plan it. So now I actually only have meetings from 8 to 9 and from 3 to 4. I block my calendar all midday, because I need to work. and I should have done that as a freelancer. I should actually have done that as a freelancer.
So basically, what you're saying is you've learned to be more allocate your time more carefully in your new role, whereas before
Yeah,
you were kind of really a lot more generous. Because I can speak to that as a freelancer. You kind of have to say yes to a lot of things, but it's really interesting to hear how time is quite different at the higher level.
yeah, but I would have loved to do that as a freelancer, and I actually think people would just accept it, because if they are reaching out to you to, if I called you, Jack, and said, "Hey, can you do this job for me? Can we meet about it tomorrow afternoon?" And you said, "No, I'm actually working, but we can do it tomorrow morning or tomorrow 4 o'clock." I would say, "No, yeah, of course, let's get it working," because I actually called you for the job. And me as a freelancer for 15 years, I've just said yes, even that it fucked my day up or my life or whatever. And my wife was mad or something because I had to go driving 2 hours for this meeting. So that I learned.
Yeah, and you really touched on something there as well. Kind of your partner or your spouse or your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever. It's really because I find like when you're doing this kind of work, because a lot of your kit's at home and you work from home a lot of the time, kind of work and life can kind of get intertwined very easily. So I think it's important to try and separate the two if you can.
The best thing I ever did, I worked from home 2 years or something after I got kids, 2.5 years. It was the worst ever. I got an office, shared office, because I had to go to work. Even that sometimes I work at night, often. I went home eating, being home with the family, and when they went to bed, I could go back to the office because it was more divided when I'm working, when I'm off.
Yeah, I think it's important to have that separation. And if you have the option to go to an office, then take it. But sometimes it's just not, especially
Yeah,
if you're
yeah, yeah.
starting
Like,
out, it's not available. But wise tips indeed.
yeah, I had a friend. I have a friend freelancing home. He actually have a small red button with light on top of his computer, and when he's working, he puts that on, and then the family and kids can say, "Okay, he's working." Now you can't. I can't. I think it's very, especially here in lockdown. Everything is lockdown. I think it's important to make some clear rules and be very, because it also, you get more productive. Because my problem when I work from home, I was not very productive. Then my wife, she has changing working times. So if you want, oh, let's have lunch, and then 2 hours later, oh, I have to work. Um, yeah, that is yeah.
Cool. Yeah, if you've got any questions for Nikolai, we've got one here already. Nikolai, how would you take on a? Sorry, Joe says, Nikolai, how would you take on a project outside of your reach, and if so, what would you do? Sorry, would you take a project outside of your reach?
Take outside my reach if I was not qualified, or
Yeah, I
how
think
is
that's what he
he?
means. If you're kind of
I would.
you're kind of
I've
punching
never
up.
said no. I've just say yes, and I will figure out how to solve it. That has always been my kind of thing. But I'm 42. I started as a photojournalist. I'm photojournalist original. I started on film, and the learning curve was very flat, kind of. But now you can find everything on the internet. Reach out to people like here. Have, okay, how did you do that, and so on. And I would just say, go for it. Know your limits. Don't say I will be Roger Deakins or I will produce this kind of stuff. But you know, I'm gonna shoot something I've never done next week, as I'm gonna be kind of director and DOP on the same time. I've never done yet, but I'm reaching out to people. And another thing is, I always hire people who is better than me. Uh, I have one guy, and he hired in on this project as well. He's so technical. He's a gaffer, but also crazy into technique, and much more. I may be more creative than him and better on the storytelling, but he is like 10 levels more technical than me, and better and often have the solutions. I say, I want to do it like this, and I couldn't do it on my own, and he make it happen. So I always make kind of a thing, hire people that are much more smarter than me.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best ways to learn, right? Because especially on set, you have to make decisions very quickly. And so if you see someone else tackle a situation and they do something in a way that you would never have thought to do it, and you're like, oh, okay, and you get kind of the benefit of their knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. And often if you're working on a budget, I've done that for many years, I often pay a lot more for some people than I self-earning. So if I hire a guy in and I can only put it in an invoice for, like, for example, $1,000, but he cost $1,300, I will take the 300 out of my salary because it will make me shine. And I would say that if you're shooting one of your first, like, commercial jobs and you don't get a lot, but you can get this lightning guy. Light is some of the most important thing for everything. And he earns more than you, I would hire him because it's make you shine. And every time you make something that you're shining and it's looking good, the fame and everything doesn't fall back to the lightning guy, but falls on you, and you will get your next better paid job. That is kind of a thing I've always done.
Very true. So we're going to bring the next guest on in a minute, but if it's all right with you, Nikolai, I'm just going to 2 more questions, just go through them quickly because I think they're quite good questions for you. So IF Film says, do you charge for location scout and or a meeting with the client?
It depends. Meeting with clients before you get the job, I'm never charging. But when I have sent an offer, I always calculate meetings and location scouting into, but I kind of take it as my investments into the getting the job. I think it's a give and take.
Cool. Hope that answers your question. Thanks for that. Tamara says, how do you cope with the pressure from these high-end productions? How do you implement your creative ideas into projects like this?
I never cope with them. I never sleep for the last 2 days up to a production. And I always, the day before, doubting, why the heck did I do this? So it's I think it's a healthy thing. On this project, the marketing manager for the whole company and myself is we are the ones behind this project, and we have been playing balls on this. But for outside, I think it's they buy my expertise, and I think it. So if I come with creative ideas, I can live with they say no to some ideas, but if I come and bring my take on the job and they say no, I have done a lot of times that I think you should find another one. So it's also to get a name where they know what they are getting. They are hiring me. You ask me, it's a fun thing. I think titles has a lot to say in the business world. Basically, I started as a photojournalist. I started when I was 14 as a photographer. Then I was a photojournalist. Then I was a DOP. Then I was a something. And I ended up, you asked me earlier today, what title should you have? And I said, visual producer. And I think it's very important for clients when they reach out to you that your title's kind of, if you're a photographer, you're a guy holding a camera. If you're a DOP, you direct the photography, but you don't come with the idea. When I'm a visual producer, I produce stories with visuals. I hate the title. I've used it myself, storyteller. I used it years back, and it's like kind of hating it. But basically, I tell stories. But visual producer, I can be director, I can be producing, I can be the cameraman, I can be the editor, I can do everything, but I can also hire people in. For me, that is a very strong signal to send to potential clients. And actually, if you do everything, make the stories, be creative, photographer is worst word you can use, because your clients is not in this business. Your clients, they say, okay, he's a photographer. We need someone who can figure out the creative part.
Thanks for your question, Tamara, and I hope that you answered it. Thank you, Nikolai, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Same here.
Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
So now we're going to be joined by Justin Edelman. Justin is a filmmaker and a photographer from the States. And Justin, how you doing?
Just unmuting myself. What's up, buddy? You got a 2-for-1 here.
Oh, who's your friend?
So this is Gene. Gene does all our editing. He's also my second shooter, and we've been working together for a while. But officially on the roster, actually in 2020, which as challenging as it was, we made it happen.
Oh, hey Gene, welcome to the stream as well. Great to have you here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No problem. Do you want to just tell? I'm just getting some audio feedback there.
Oh, are you? Okay, hold on a second.
That's all right. So yeah, Justin and sorry, I forgot your name. Say again.
It's Gene.
Sorry, Justin and Gene, very similar. Justin and Gene, tell us a little bit about the work you do, and kind of touch on the struggles and the challenges that you're facing at the moment.
One sec. Let me just put these AirPods on.
No problem.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're all good.
Is that better now? No feedback?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, good. Struggles at the moment.
First tell a little bit about kind of what you do, and then we'll go into the struggles.
Okay. Yeah, so normally we're kind of all over the place, right? So sometimes we do live streams for events. I shoot a lot as a camera op, do DP work. I've done documentaries. We have a YouTube channel that kind of started this year, and yeah, it's sort of like a variety. We're doing a lot of events at some point, but as I've progressed over the years, I've been mainly working as an op, doing Steadicam, Ronin, and then drone work. That's mostly what I get called in for. But yeah, kind of it's a variety. It's not just one thing, you know?
Yeah, like I said, you've got to be a jack of all trades sometimes, haven't you? And what are the challenges you're facing at the moment? Obviously, the pandemic's going on, so we're all facing that. But what challenges are you facing that are kind of causing you difficulty at the moment?
So the last fellow's name was Nikolai?
Nikolai, yeah.
Nikolai. Okay, so Nikolai brought up a really good point. You know, like last year was hard, but in some ways, I almost feel like this year is worse because you know, it's like this prolonged stress of trying to bring in income, bring in money. And, you know, last year it was sort of in and out of work. And now it's just like, we're still on this lockdown. Everybody's so unsure. I can tell there's a lot of interest that people are interested in doing work and getting, you know, some videos out there, but it's still slow to sort of happen. And this sustained lull it's challenging. You know, I mean, beginning of last year, I had savings that we kind of tapped into, and now it's like we've gone through the savings and we're getting down to total survival mode. So, you know, that's a bit rough, but you know, for us in this business, I mean, I think a lot of people, when you've done this long enough, you realize that you have sort of feast or famine, right? And so you save up. When you get wise and you've done this for a while, you know that there's just going to be lulls here and there, and you have to be ready for those, especially in the freelancing world. But you know, to have this pandemic like this for such a sustained period of time, it's hard. Like now I'm kind of going back to almost a paycheck to paycheck. And, you know, again, Nikolai brought up having an office outside of your house. Well, I started out with a little basically cupboard in my house, and then worked into renting out. We had a roommate for a while, and when they moved out, I kind of rented the room and turned it into my studio. And I have a daughter, I have a family. So, that is challenging to like try to focus and edit or talk to clients or meet with people or whatever when you're in the house. But obviously, having that at home was nice because the bills are a lot cheaper. It's not, you don't have all this overhead. And eventually I moved out of the house. I got an office, which was great because, I had that space. I had a place to put my belongings, and I had some privacy to sort of work on things. But, as you start to progress through the different levels of this career, the cost of doing it also goes up. And I went from a small office space outside the house to a much bigger space, which you can see here. And now the overhead is, it's a lot. So then it gets to this point where we're in this sort of sustained situation, and you start to have to think about, like, am I going to have to drop this studio? Am I going to have to kind of close down the office for a bit? Or can we try to make it through long enough? And the thing is, if I was making the kind of money that I am now when I lived in the house before, I'd have a great, huge savings right now. But the overhead of having an employee and having an office and all that stuff, that eats a big chunk of your income,
Yeah,
but it
I
also
think
gets you on the big projects.
yeah, and I think you've kind of touched on a really important point of kind of having, like you said, feast and famine is a thing in normal times, but you can't really plan for these massive kind of events like COVID. But it still kind of means that you do have to put away regularly savings, right? So this might not be the only kind of major thing that happens in our lifetime. So if the pandemic has taught me anything, it's to kind of make sure you're putting away that money, even if you think things are kind of going back to normal. It's still important to be investing in your future in that way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, and as far as money goes, it's always a challenge because people come to my studio and they're like, man, you have so much equipment, and all this money invested in equipment, and I mean, I legitimately could have bought a house by now, right? But at the same time, it's like, yes, a house can make you money in the long run, but your video cameras and your lenses and all that are your tools for the trade. So that's another thing. And honestly, we've sold off a lot of equipment that we weren't using just to kind of keep things going and floating, or upgraded equipment. I sold the FS7 to buy the FX6, but also just got rid of a bunch of stuff that we never used. We had sliders that were just like laying around, and lenses that we hadn't used in God knows how long, so we just sold it. It's kind of nice, little culling.
Yeah, sometimes it does take kind of big events and challenges. We're talking about challenges and struggles. Sometimes challenges and struggles are good. So sometimes it can kind of force you to refocus. It can force you to diversify your business. So we've been talking about pivoting away from standard videography services to kind of streaming, editing from home, different things like that. So if some of the things that I've learned is kind of, like I said, investing in the future, but also diversifying your business. And I just wanted to say, like, as Justin's editor, as his second shooter, what has your challenges been?
I would say just managing the time. I have a small daughter as well, and just making sure that I have the right time to be able to edit these works, and be able to show up to shoots. And I would say in this pandemic has been the hardest part, just managing things around the house. That way I can work and make money.
Yeah, I think because a lot of people are working from home, a lot of people are kind of spending more time with their family, which is great, but it also is difficult to, like we were talking with Nikolai, to separate work and home, especially if you're working from home or you've got kids running around. It's really difficult to separate the two, right?
Yes, indeed, yeah.
So
Yeah,
what
but
are the
go through it, yeah, and it's possible, and it definitely can be done. Just a
So
little bit
what-
of adjustment.
Sorry. Yeah. So what are the kind of things that you guys are putting into place for 2021 to try and try and tackle some of those challenges you've talked about? Do you have any strategies, or are you kind of shifting focus? What kind of things are you putting in place to tackle those challenges?
Yeah, so 2020, and I think just like so many people, like I watched all the things that I'd worked for in 2019 pretty much go to hell, right? That whole strategy, and it was, yeah, I literally just watched basically everything I'd worked for evaporate into thin air, So then it was sort of like, all right, well, I can lay around and feel sorry for myself, or I can take this opportunity to ask the question, where do I want to go and how am I going to get there, right? And so that was where putting together and actually working on a YouTube channel was that kind of came into play. And so we've spent the last 8 months building up Sailing Anarchy's YouTube channel, and it's been a very good education. I mean, I don't think I could have really paid for an education this good going to school, because you learn by doing, right? So it's been good. There's a lot of things that you just don't know what you don't know when you start, right? And so when we started doing it, we kind of made this choice to go with Sailing Anarchy and build up their YouTube channel, because he already had a big following, right? And we thought that it would be the quickest way to monetization, making some residual income. But what we have learned over the last 6 to 8 months is that it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? And so, I think I like the channel and we love doing the videos and all that stuff. But when it comes to what was best for us in the long term, my logic 6 to 8 months ago is that it'd be nice to have some residual income that's outside of what we normally do, right? And this seemed like the smart choice to move forward on. But now in hindsight, having put in 6 to 8 months of work on a YouTube channel and built it up considerably, and it's actually doing well. Now again, knowing what I know, we're doing pretty well for somebody who just started out.
Your subscriber figures are really, really strong.
Yeah, it's good, and we get a lot of views, and but the downside to that is that we've just spent the last 8 months building up somebody else's brand, and he has a commitment on his side to come in and host a show and share the videos and help us find these boats, and he's the knowledgeable one when it comes to talking about the boats and all that stuff, but we haven't asked for any sort of monetary reward for this stuff, other than the ultimate, like when we start making money, we've discussed what that looks like, right? But as far as the interim, and Gene's on salary, I pay myself a salary, and we're devoting a lot of time to this, and really it is an investment. Looking back, I think that, and if anybody's watching this, I think my words of advice to them would be like, you really have to build a brand that is yours if you're going to do that, that you own, that you're in control of, that you ultimately have the say as to where things are going to kind of end up, right? Because when you put the weight on somebody else's shoulders, then you're relying on them to come through on things. And if maybe they get tired of doing it, maybe they're sick, or they just have other things they get busy with, you're at their mercy, so looking back, I think I'm grateful that we did this and we learned a lot, and we're still doing it. I'm not saying we're stopping or anything like that, but I think if we could go back in time and say, what, it's fine to start from the bottom and have slow growth because it's just going to be slow anyway, I probably would have, said that let's just work on our brand, because that would, in the long run, thinking about the future, put us in a position where we want to be with our content, with our brand, and with a platform that will give us the type of business and recognition that we need.
Yeah, we've got a few questions coming in, so I'm just going to put those to you. We've got one from Aya Film who said, did you get any help from the government during COVID-19?
No, not really. I actually just recently applied for some grants and this next round of Paycheck Protection. But unfortunately, and I don't know if I should be airing this out there, but the way that we did the accounting, was really to save taxes. And so I was the only employee of my business before, and the way we did taxes, I didn't qualify for the paycheck protection. So yeah, as far as like the government supporting us, like we just weren't set up for it. So actually, this year, a couple things. One is like I want to buy a house at some point. I mean, again, for anybody who's in this business, hopefully you can do this forever, but obviously investing in things like property and diversifying your portfolio outside of film is really important. So we are on payroll properly now, showing like a good income. It sucks because there's a lot of taxes in California that go out with that, but also it protects us too. I mean, that's one thing. It was like I couldn't even qualify for unemployment at first. Eventually they did allow it, but I still had money coming in, so I didn't really want to do that. And I wasn't dying. I mean, unfortunately, I blew through my savings, which on a separate subject, it's like all these millionaires who got these paycheck protection and all these like bailouts. It pisses me off because here I am, a small business, and I took my own money out of my savings to keep our business afloat. Meanwhile, these guys are taking all this money and still going and buying their yachts and whatever. And that does kind of bug me, but hey, maybe they're smarter than I am. I'm broke and they're millionaires. So oops, you cut out.
Sorry. Yeah, and just to answer your question as well, because I'm from the UK, so similar situation to Justin for tax purposes. I kind of took dividends, so that was I wasn't on payroll. I didn't really pay myself like a proper salary, which, like Justin said, was actually savvy behavior in terms of taxes before the pandemic. But then it meant that I couldn't qualify for any of the kind of income support that they were offering. I did benefit from a government loan, so the government were offering loans at very, very good terms, but obviously still have to pay that back at some point. So it's something you have to weigh up, and it's going to be different in any country. But IO Film, what country are you coming from? Might give us a better idea of where you're coming from. Yes, next question. This one's for Gene. So, any challenges with the missus about your career path, since you have children and having to juggle both work and family? So, I guess challenges around family life and work, balancing the two.
Just the basics, I would say, around scheduling the times with the little ones, but not so much. It's been a difficult journey, but we have been able to solve all the problems that arise, and we have been able to make it work. Yeah.
That's good to hear. So IO Film said he's from the USA as well, so Justin's advice will probably apply to you as well. I don't know if there's any difference between state level stuff, because I know it's a bit different over there. Is it different policies for different states, or is it kind of like an overall?
So California has grants that the state has approved, and then there's the federal level, a Small Business Association. So yeah, there is some stuff, but even the grants, man. I mean, I applied for grants, and then everything feels like a scam. It's like I looked on the newspaper or online on the newspapers, and they're like, there's a fresh round of grants to help small businesses. So I went to their site, and there's all these options, and you get to their websites, and their websites are rudimentary and kind of creepy looking. It's like red flags right away. And then here you are inputting all your personal information into something that looks sketchy to begin with, and then then all of a sudden it's like I send in all my paperwork, and now I can't log in. It doesn't work, and they're allegedly sending me a new password, and they never do. And so I don't know. It's someone's probably opening up a credit card in my name and having a rude awakening, because there isn't much on there.
Yeah, I think I've had similar experiences here. So, kind of the process for applying for these grants and for this funding, it seems really convoluted, and like you said, it doesn't look very official. Like sometimes they'll have really basic, kind of, flash player errors and stuff like that that shouldn't be happening with, when you're, like you said, you're giving vital details away and kind of asking for big amounts of money. So, Aya Film says the rich get richer and the poor stay poor. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens with this latest administration. It definitely seemed to be the case in the previous administration that everything was definitely leaning towards letting the rich get richer and the poor get even poorer. But not to make this political. We're in a new era, new administration. The only thing I'll say about that is like every day I wake up and first thing I do is look at the news, just so I know what's going on today. And today was like weird. It was like I looked through the news and it was like, wow, there's no like alarming articles about anything today. It's just kind of like, wow, I'm so used to waking up and almost getting like worked up because there's so much like bad news out there. So I hope it stays that way, and I hope that the overall energy for our country kind of starts to taper off of everybody being in this like heightened angry level. And we as a country really do need to heal right now. Things are pretty bad. I guess you guys sort of went through something like that with Brexit. People just like wound up and so angry about whatever, right?
Yeah, and I think without getting too deep into the politics, I think sometimes we've had the financial crisis in 2008, then we've had kind of increasing equality, like a bigger gap between the rich and the poor. You've had people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. I think Elon Musk just overtook Jeff Bezos as the richest guy in the world. So yeah, and kind of at times of those big kind of divides, you'll find these political forces struggling with each other. So we're not going to we're not going to kind of give a horse in the race either side, but like Justin said, I think just having more stability to deal with the pandemic, to get money out to people that need it, really kind of benefits us as filmmakers, because business business loves stability. So anything that will keep it kind of more predictable.
That's what actually I would like to say is I think that part of the problem for us in the U.S. the last like the last year is just that there has been not really any real plan or goals that have been put out there. There's been, like from the beginning, it's just been like, this isn't real, it's going to go away. And the thing is, it's not going away. The numbers in LA are horrible right now. I mean, and also, there's new variants like you guys are experiencing in the UK. There's new variants popping up here in the US. There was apparently a new one they figured out is here in Southern California, and it's explaining why our numbers just went through the roof, right? But the hard part is that because there isn't really any stability, it's like, it's hard for any business to really plan. I mean, we had all these restaurants here in California that started building outdoor locations because that was allowed, and then that all got shut down, and then for us in the film industry, like a lot of us have come up with pretty good protocols. I mean, I've done a lot of jobs since the pandemic started, but we go into it and you have to take a test. Everybody on the set has to take a test, right? Mm-hmm. I've seen a variety of people trying to solve issues. I don't agree with all of them, but I do think that going in and everybody being tested before you do it, everybody wearing a mask all day, making sure you have, hand sanitizer. I always bring these little hand sanitizers, and, like not getting too close, not being in a tight space with a bunch of people, limiting the crew, trying to, wherever you can sort of adapt and take crew members out that you don't need to have there, or bring in crew members early to build up stuff. That's kept us safe. I knock on wood, man, but I haven't got sick yet, and I haven't taken the vaccine. And like I said, I've worked on a lot of jobs so far. So it's when you have like some idea of how you can operate, it makes things work. I mean, in November, I was very, very slow until November, and then in November, I worked 12-hour days for a month and a half, and made enough money to get us by for a couple more months. And, and I think that that's going to happen again. This is another thing I wanted to touch on in this, is that for those of you in California and Southern California, there's just a vacuum that's forming in LA and in the industry in general. Everybody needs content. They need it worse than ever. Some of the clients that I've been talking to, they have these huge budgets, huge millions of dollars for doing trade shows. Well, guess what? There's no way they're doing a trade show this year. Like, it's not going to happen. We're not going to, maybe in 2022 or whatever, but definitely not this year. So what does that mean for us as filmmakers? It means that they have this money that's laying around, and they are usually using that for marketing purposes. So if you can convince them to, take a little bit of what that is, that trade show money, and invest it into what actually is going to probably have even more long-lasting marketing power anyway over going to a trade show, then you're in a good spot. Just keep that in mind. People have budgets, and they have to reallocate their money. So it's not that there's no money out there. It's not that businesses are hurting. A lot of businesses, big businesses, are doing better than ever before, or has sustained through all this stuff, and they still need video content. So you just gotta work that network and get there. I mean, one other thing I'll say about Nikolai's interview is, he's absolutely right. Like, you should become friends with everybody who is on set, and just be a friendly person. Like, your network is the most powerful thing you have. That's how I get 90% of my business, is through network. It's not, I don't go advertise, I don't do any of that stuff. It's just from going out, doing a good job, being a nice person, and being good at what I do helps.
Absolutely. I think being personable, being reliable, turning up on time, and like just not being a dick, just being like a nice person to work for, because the industry at the moment is so saturated in certain ways because of like the popularity of certain YouTube creators, really kind of sold videography to the masses. So there's a lot of people out there. So if you're not a nice person to work for, it doesn't matter how good you are at your craft, people are not going to ask you back. You need to be like a decent person and reliable as well.
Yeah, 100%.
And we've got Skip says, is that all across the US or just in California? What is that referring to, Skip?
As far as like business goes, and how we're operating, or
yeah, can you just clarify what you mean by that question? We'll get back to you. David says, my buddy in LA who's a DP, Steadicam op, did 80 plus jobs last year during the pandemic. Folks are hungry for content. Wow.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. Yeah, he's absolutely right. I mean, I have a lot of friends who are up there, and there was definitely a lull where everybody was freaking out. And there was also a period of time where people who are union couldn't work. I mean, the unions actually, it's they protect you in more than one way, and unfortunately, because there just wasn't really enough data or anything, there was no real good protocols on how to deal with this. And actually, even this latest, things opened up, they let the studio start filming again, people were going out and doing these big projects. And obviously, these big projects, you can't really limit the numbers. You really do need 100 electric people to go set up a lighting setup on a street or whatever, and there's nothing you can do about that. It would cost the studio so much money to try to spread it out in days, and sometimes spreading it out in days isn't even possible, because you have to get something lit that's a street or whatever, and it has to happen in a short period of time because of the weather or the fact that they're closing down the street or whatever, right? So there's just nothing they can do about reducing the numbers. And they had to come up with protocols. Things did sort of start to come back online a bit, but then the numbers shot through the roof again. And at first, the state didn't shut down production again, but they were asking them to close down. The health department was like, hey, listen, the numbers are really bad, and we'd like you guys to try to close down. And, it is hard because there's just so many unknowns. But I have confidence that this new administration not only is coming up with a very well orchestrated plan but are going to start to be honest with the data so that we can better prepare ourselves to go out and do these jobs. I mean, if we just knew sort of some of the basic things of, like, we hear it through the media and stuff, but just some basic guidelines on how this spreads most easily. Does it spread through contacting by touching a camera and then having somebody else touch the camera? Like, what is the likelihood of that really being a spreader there? Or what is like a good practices? Do masks actually work or not work, right? We've been hearing like, oh, take off your mask and don't mute yourself and censor yourself in America and blah, 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 like, whatever, man. I just want to work. And if I have to wear a mask, I just all I want to know is like what are the best practices to do this safe? That's it. I don't want to get sick.
So David's just saying there's concrete data on some of the things that you've talked about. So I know David's partner is a nurse who works in the ICU. So I'll link you two up prior to this, so we can just keep things moving. Aya Film says, again, do it all in post. You still need a crew. Like, even if you're doing a lot of stuff in post, a lot of people don't realize, like, and you can probably talk to this as well, Justin and Gene, because you probably worked on higher end stuff than me, but just having grips, so people that are there to kind of move stuff around and rig stuff up, that's a massive part of a crew. So even if you take out the camera department, take out the gaffers, take out the DPs, everything on the directors, you've still got a load of people just moving stuff around, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting over the summertime when we were on lockdown. I actually did a national commercial, and it was an interesting situation because the director also ended up sort of being the DP, and then he was also an actor in the commercial. And
wow.
This happened. There was a lot of these commercials that were out there. You'll see that you can tell, like, man, that kid really looks like that guy or that woman, right? Well, what happened is a lot of directors just said, hey, I have a family. We can film us at our house. And it was a common thing for a minute. So he actually had his family in the commercial, his parents. I'm trying to remember if we had any. I think all the talent was actually family. And we worked between his grandparents' house or his parents' house and his own house. And then what they did was, normally for these big national ads, you have the marketing people who are there, right? They're there giving input. I don't like those windows. I don't like that curtain, whatever, right? Reviewing the footage. They're, they're watching all the screens to sort of make sure that things are looking the way they want it to. So with that, we actually just basically did a Zoom call, and we had a wire going in from our main camera source, and actually no, sorry, we had a line out from the director's monitor into the Zoom call so they could see what was going on, right? And we got rid of all those people, and there was like 16 of those people, right? And then for our DIT, the DIT just sat in his van outside the whole time. He wasn't in there. Normally we'd have a DIT on set with us, right? But he just sat in his van the whole time, and I would run a card out to him, and then I'd swap cards and go back to the camera or whatever. And then I'm trying to think. And then the lighting guy was just my neighbor. I mean, we were literally, it was like a neighborhood of people who got together to produce this on a very limited crew basis, and it worked out. But there's a big difference, I mean, when you have multiple gaffers, first of all, the shooting goes by much faster. You have the ability to make adjustments a lot easier. And, obviously, like we didn't have that option. So things took a little bit longer, and, maybe it wasn't as beautiful as it could have been, I guess. But it does, that's where things make a difference. Whenever I have a client come to me and they're like, oh, that's just, they tell me what they want. I say that's going to be 15 grand. And then they come back and say, well, I only have 5. And so then I just tell them, like, okay, well, for 5 grand, you get this, and you're going to miss out on this, 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 and this, because I have to hire a sound guy. I have to hire lighting. I have to rent lighting equipment. So, if that's the budget, then this is what you'll get. And if you're okay with that, then okay,
Yeah, I think it just speaks to people kind of not really understanding how much work goes into, because people are so, content is everywhere now, whether it's be on social media, commercials. They're so used to seeing high quality content, even on Instagram, that they don't really realize that everything behind that high quality content, say if it's like a high end influencer with millions of followers, the chances are they've got a team behind them. So they've got kind of people shooting those kind of brand videos they're doing. And people kind of just think, you can get those with like a one-man band or something, but really having that team around them is really important. But David's just said on the Chrysler hybrid van commercials, they shot on an iPhone. Yeah, and recently in the UK, I don't know how much global reach he has, but do you guys know Jamie Oliver, the chef? Anyway.
I know who that is, but yeah, anyway, go ahead.
He's like a nice Gordon Ramsay. So like Gordon Ramsay without the shouting, basically.
Yeah.
But he did a cooking show during lockdown where it was just him and his wife, and like he's a big deal in the UK. So usually we'd have a crew there, but he shot like the whole thing on his iPhone, and I think maybe he had like a lav mic on or something like that. But Justin and Gino, just wondering, like, leads me into my next question. Do you think that because marketing execs we've got so used to seeing people calling in from home, even on kind of like high-end newscasting stuff, or even in adverts, they're kind of integrating stuff that's kind of like just Zoom call recordings, because that's become normalized. Do you think that that's going to lead to people like scaling down productions more and just saying, well, if you can shoot on your iPhone during the pandemic, then you can do it outside as well?
It's like, why does Christopher Nolan still shoot on film? Yeah, sure, there's going to be a lot of content over the next couple of years that's going to be related to the pandemic, and so they'll mimic things like this. But no, I don't think that people are going to accept the quality of the footage. Okay, well, I got used to that, so I'm good with it now. I think that people still want to have high quality, good looking footage. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that
there's so much you can do with an iPhone?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I just wonder if they'll kind of say to talent, even if it's not an iPhone, if it's like a simple, like I've got the Sony ZV-1 here, which is like a 1-inch sensor camera, so it's really cheap, but it looks pretty decent. So I'm wondering if people will kind of just ship out these super compact production packages to people and just say go for it, rather than sending a crew round. It might be an excuse to cut budgets. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, what I will say that I think will change, and also this kind of piggybacks on the Nikolai's interview, is that things like meetings, like, man, I remember before the pandemic, I used to go drive somewhere to go do a coffee or go do a beer or whatever, and it was like 3 hours of my day just got eaten up on that one conversation. And one thing I do hope that is here to stay is that we have now become accustomed to doing this type of conversation, and it's a time saver, man. Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, when you get to a certain point in your career or your business, that you kind of realize that there are these time bandits, right? People who are trying to steal your time. That's what I kind of joke around with, and or things in your life that are they just drain a lot of time out of your productivity, the time that you could be doing work. So for me, like, I actually hope that having like meetings virtually like this is something that's kind of here to stay, because it just makes it much easier. Like, I can have a coffee with you right here, and I still, believe me, I still like the face-to-face interaction and being with somebody, but just sometimes some of these business things, I think it's like, the nice thing is that now clients will be programmed that like this is acceptable, and so therefore I can push to have a Zoom call meeting with a client versus like going and meeting them in person. Obviously there are situations where you do need to be present. It's really hard to location scout through a Zoom call, at least for me. So I think that like that's something that will be nice to have kind of come back and go with a client to do location scouting, And I'm trying to think of another place where I hope things are sort of like, you know, a causation of like the pandemic sort of causing people to do things differently. You know, as far as like content goes and using it like a ZV1 and all that, I mean, dude, it's here to stay. It's not like Casey Neistat, Peter McKinnon, you know, all those guys have proven that that lower budget, I mean, and those guys are pretty high budget now, but when they started, they weren't. And people enjoy that. I mean, we analyze other YouTube channels to try to figure out what to do and how they're doing things right. Why are they getting 200,000 views and we're not, right? And, you know, it's surprising to us. We put so much production value in what we do. And, you know, I think that at the end of the day, especially when it comes to YouTube, it is that the story obviously is number one, and number two is the topic, you know, or actually it's probably the other way around. Your topic is the most important thing, you know, and then the second thing is the story. But I don't know, you know, it's interesting because there's like one channel that we follow that it's like there's no story and the production value is horrible. But the only thing that he does do is he brings these girls on his show and they're usually in a bikini and he gets like hundreds of thousands of views, you know, and it's like, it's, you know, like, I guess people like that and the low quality. I mean,
the thing is, it kind of makes you a little bit mad sometimes.
That kind of stuff. Oh, it drives me nuts. Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, there's plenty of websites where you can go actually see the whole thing, right? And from your phone, and you know, you don't need to watch some pervy dude on a YouTube channel for that. But I guess it works.
Or even kind of like the really throwaway stuff that you're kind of like you said, the production quality is terrible, the audio is terrible, but the hook of their channel is that they shoot technology. So they kind of like shoot an iPhone and see if it survives, and like it gets millions of views, and you're like, man, why am I working so hard on my videos?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it's something we're kind of trying to figure out is like, where is that balance between production quality and then just the content itself, you know? Like, I remember when and this is foolish and, you know, it's kind of a weird thing to admit, but years ago when I looked at YouTube, you know, for me as a filmmaker, I looked at Vimeo, YouTube, Wistia, all that, as ways of just distributing the video. And I didn't really think of much beyond that. So Vimeo was used to share with clients, or Wistia, right? And YouTube was just sort of like, oh, okay, well, a lot of people can see this. And I liked YouTube back in the day because it worked better across multiple platforms. Like Vimeo freezes up a lot, right? But you don't have all the tools in YouTube that you do have with Vimeo. If I'm working with a client and we do a new version or a new cut, you know, I can replace the original file and I don't have to worry about changing the link, right? And so there are things like that. But I just never thought of YouTube as a place where, you know, like I didn't think of YouTube for what YouTube is, right? And YouTube is like a great place to break into new markets. You know, Vimeo is not really that. Vimeo is a place for other filmmakers to appreciate other filmmakers' work. But we're a pretty small community, really. And, you know, and honestly, I go on Vimeo to sort of just get ideas and stuff. I enjoy watching other people's work. And oftentimes, like, people will work on some particular skill and they don't make some cohesive film necessarily, but they do something really cool, like a parallaxing time lapse, you know? And then I'm like, all right, well, how can I incorporate that in my work? But as far as YouTube went, I remember foolishly thinking like, well, I have high quality production value and all these people are on YouTube just posting stuff with their phones, and of course when I post something on there it's going to do well. Well, no, that is not how YouTube works, right? And you can't just be a one, you know, like a one and done type of person. Like, you know, it is not like that. It's about consistency, it's about understanding your audience, it's about delivering the content that they expect. And it's about working towards getting YouTube to recognize your algorithm, right? Or recognize you in their algorithm and you getting up to the top of that list. And then, you know, on top of that, knowing what is that term that you want people to type in to YouTube to find you, right? So, you know, in our case, we want it, and anytime somebody types in sailing, we want our videos to be right there at the top of recommended videos, right? And that's when you can identify that, it puts you in a really different place in YouTube. And then I think Jack, this, but as far as like doing YouTube and all that, it's a commitment. Like you're married to it. And if you want to make it and you want to make that $50,000 a month that you hear about whoever making out there, well, dude, it's a long journey and it's a committed journey, and if you look at all the people who have made it, that's how they got there.
Yeah, we've got a question from Skip, who's just saying, what is your YouTube channel? And do they do sailing exclusively, I guess?
So the one we've been working on for the last 6 to 8 months is Sailing Anarchy. And it is just sailing content. Yeah, I mean, that's all. And actually, on that note, as far as is it exclusive to anything? Well, yes, when you do a YouTube channel, you should be exclusively doing one thing. So if you look at Jack, he's putting up video content that's all about lighting and frame rates, and he's doing these interviews with filmmakers. That's all falling under one umbrella. He's not posting videos that are about his favorite flowers, and then 2 days later doing a video about a camera, and then 2 days later doing a video about the puppy mill down the street. And it has to be this all-encompassing thing. Your audience needs to know that if they're coming to your channel and they're subscribing, which is the key there, that they're subscribing to. Again, like my error when it came to my own YouTube channel, which is Nobleman Sailing Media, is that I was all over the place. I mean, we were doing videos about how to put microphones on, all the way to like people who are like houseless kids who are kind of like hitchhiking around on boats, to short films, to like it was all over the place. It was just like too much kind of, that's not really like all this, it's not all falling under the same blanket, and that's important. You can't just be all over the place. Like I see these like technology channels, and yeah, like sure, they're reviewing like a black magic camera one week, and then the next week they're doing a TV, but it's all technology, and it's all about like discussing that latest technology. So it might be a lot of different things, but at least it's like it falls under the same sort of like umbrella, and I think that's important.
Yeah, niching down I think is really important, and it's kind of weird, this kind of filmmaker or videographer YouTube divide, because when I was just a videographer sharing my work, I'd get good feedback. Sometimes I get some constructive feedback, which is cool. But as soon as I started putting stuff on YouTube, it kind of has this kind of, I don't know, negative connotation. It's like, oh, you're just a YouTuber. And I was like, well, actually, when you're actually doing YouTube, and like Justin said, you're putting the work in, that's a skill, and it's really, really hard. It's not easy at all. When you see people that look like it's effortless, it's really not. Like they've had to work so hard to get that. So I don't think, I mean, there is some kind of YouTube channels that are might be a bit of a waste of time, but I think it's a skill, right? And it takes a lot of work to get there.
Yeah, what I'll say to that is that, and Gene will agree with this, so when we first started, like I think that we were more like, I guess, filmmakers, but if you think about the skills that we've gained the last 6 to 8 months, like now we can, what are a couple things that you'd say that we've learned that we're good at now, that we go into like one of these projects like Colorcraft, for example, like what is that thing that immediately we're able to do really well? You remember, like,
since we've been doing it so much, I think the structure of it, of how to already visualize how the video is going to look like, I think we are really good at it. Because in YouTube, you have to be consistent. We have every Monday have a new video. So we kind of got very efficient on how to go approach a certain project, how to edit it. We already had a formula, how to deal with that. And I think overall what we gain from YouTube is that being consistent and polishing all these different skills that goes into creating a video.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and like the other thing is, like for us, like first of all, if you look on Netflix or you look on Amazon Prime or HBO or Disney, what is everything today, right? Everything is an episodic series. So we're little babies in the world of filmmaking, But the truth is, like, this is the best damn practice that you're going to be able to get without being part of a TV show in LA. Like you have, like I actually posted a link earlier. It's a little quote from Ira Glass, and he's talking about, that it's tough when you start out, and we all have good taste, but your videos initially kind of suck. And what I've learned over the years is that the time that I am at my like most creative and most successful is when I'm pumping out a massive volume of work. And so, I mean, that's the thing. Like, we have just done in the last 28 weeks, 28 episodes every single Monday for 28 weeks. And that is truthfully the largest volume of continuous work I've ever had. And so if you think about how, like, for us, when we go do these retro boat videos that we've been doing, it's not just that we go film something and then it's like, okay, we figured out the formula and it's done. No, not at all. Like, we go out, we film it, we put it together, and we come back and we sit down at the edit together. And hold on a second. We sit down at the edit together and we talk about how can we do this better next time, right? And then not only that, but now I feel like, now that after doing YouTube for so long, I honestly feel like that I'm able to give clients like a much better product in the end. Like, I was just talking to a company that is interested in doing a bunch of like how-to videos, like how to use their products. And I mean, they're like, well, we need this kind of quick and efficiently. So I'm like, done. Like, we got this. We are.
That's been us for the last year. Yeah.
Exactly. And on top of that, I think a really big thing that we offer that we didn't offer before is strategy. There are so many filmmakers out there that they get approached by a client. The client says, I mean, it's different when you have a script in a movie or something like that. But for people who are doing events and corporate films and working for clients or commercial companies or whatever, right? Part of our job isn't just to produce that content. I think that part of your job can be about, well, here, based on all the information that I have learned over the years, I know how you can strategically do things that will help your business. You're going to get a return on investment, right? So, for example, like this company I just spoke to, I looked at their YouTube channel. And, I basically said like they wanted to make this sexy commercial, and that's great. And we want to make the sexy commercial. And I think that will be good. It'll help them also in selling their products. But the thing that's going to really make a difference for them is having these how-to videos. It's a technology company. So they sell satellite phones, they sell satellite devices. And I looked at their Yelp, and I saw all these people kind of complaining about how when they turned on their phone, they didn't realize all the apps were running in the background, so it ate up all their satellite data and all that. So basically, I went to them and I was like, look, I've been a client of yours. I've actually used these satellite devices when I've traveled around the world. And I can tell you that, yes, it's very useful and nice that when I come into your shop, you guys sit there and give me a tutorial on the equipment. But then the problem is 2 weeks later, after I did that little tutorial, I'm now on Kilimanjaro, I'm sucking for air, and I don't remember everything that you guys sat down and showed me in the shop, right? So it would have been really nice, and I certainly don't have connection. The connection I'm relying on is this satellite device that I have to try to remember with low oxygen how to use. It would have been nice to have had some videos that were downloaded before I left that I could just look on my device and do a little step-by-step, and watch it like we do with everything on YouTube. I mean, fortunately there were directions and I'm tech savvy, so I figured it out, but not everybody is, So for us to provide content that is going to alleviate or give a better user experience, that is of massive value to that company. And for a filmmaker to basically be able to look at that, and then also from the YouTube perspective, say like, look, I know for a fact that when you build a YouTube channel, it can't just be all the sexy content. People need to find your channel somehow, right? So how do they find your channel? They find your channel by Google searching something like, how do I get internet on my boat, right? And boom, you have a video at the top that says, how do I get video on my boat? And then maybe a couple videos down from that, you have that sexy video that shows your products, and they maybe will watch it, maybe they won't. But if you become a resource where people can basically understand how the technology works, or at least like figure out how to do something, even if they didn't buy the product from you, they're gonna have that kind of flow or channel to you. And that's a huge part of today's ecosystem of marketing and and sales. So we come from this place of knowing what is working and what doesn't work, and that's just through doing YouTube for so long.
100%. And what you said about kind of YouTube making you a better filmmaker, same experience here. Like I try to do at least this live video every week, and then if I have time, another video. So literally just filming and editing and uploading, and like you said, getting a feel for what people are going to respond to is really important. And also it teaches you new skills. So I've learned how to live stream. Now I can offer live streaming to my clients as an option. So really good. We're going to take last questions now, guys, because we've been on live for quite a while. So final questions, put them below. Taylor Technique has been waiting very patiently, but I wanted to follow the thread we were going down because it was a very interesting discussion. But Taylor Technique has got a gear question. So he says that he films with a Sony ZV-1 in low light in my gym. Should I upgrade to the Sony A7C to get access to lenses, I guess, interchangeable lenses? Do you have any thoughts on that, Justin or Gene?
Go ahead. Do you have any? I mean, I have some thoughts, but go ahead.
I mean, I would say upgrade to the A7S for sure. It'll do great in low light, but being able to swap some lenses will help. I don't know.
ZV-1's like a zoom.
The zoom.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah.
It has
I'm
a
sure
zoom,
like
right,
maybe
Jack?
the aperture doesn't go that
there
low.
it is right there.
Okay.
Yeah, what is the speed on it? 2.8?
It's f1.8 at the wide end, but then as it zooms in, it goes down to f2.8. So you can actually get some decent subject separation, but I think the flexibility of having the interchangeable lenses is a really good plus. But go on, sorry, I interrupted you.
My suggestion actually is, challenge yourself to do lighting, because the reality is you're saying that you'd rather rely on the technology of your camera to sort of get you that low light or that light quality, but really what you should be doing is trying to figure out a way to light your scene so that it will work on any camera. I mean, it doesn't matter what camera you have. You could have a Venice or a Red or A7S III. I mean, for us, in our case, I guess, like a lot of the times we don't have time to like set up or light something. So we will kind of use the low light capabilities of the A7S III as a crutch. But the downside to that is that when we do that, like the color will be horrible, or the lighting will be dull and flat. And I mean, it doesn't matter if you have a Sony Venice. If you don't light for the scene, it's not going to look good. You might as well just shoot with an iPhone. So I think it's actually, if you have the ability to sort of start to wrap your mind around lighting, that's really going to be the key. I think it's, and I don't mean to sound this offensively, but I think a lot of people are like, oh, I do natural lighting. I rely on, windows or whatever. And, but it's kind of a cop out, honestly, like, or it's just because you're afraid of trying to have to learn lighting, and lighting is definitely challenging. It's a lot more work. It's a lot more setup. But it's worth it in the end, and in the long run, it's going to make you actually a better filmmaker. So
yeah, and I think. Sorry, go
on. You could totally do everything with the ZV-1. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah,
sorry.
that's kind of what I was going to say as well. I mean, it's nice to have options, but it sounds like you're someone that's kind of starting out and is kind of looking. If you're thinking that buying a full frame camera is going to really elevate your videos, it's not. Like, you might get shallower depth of field, but that doesn't get you very far. Like, really, this camera, I've used this camera on like client projects, paying clients, like mid-range clients. I've used it on my YouTube videos as like a B cam to my A7S III. And because I pay attention to lighting and framing and composition and all those really essential things, it doesn't matter if I'm shooting with the ZV-1 or the A7S III, or like Justin said, if you're shooting with a cinema camera, it doesn't really matter. Really, like when you're progressing as a videographer filmmaker, the tools are good, but they're not going to solve really problems for you. They're not going to make your footage look better. They might give you some more inputs, or they might make it easier to, plug microphones in, or, give you more control of your exposure. But the fundamentals of filmmaking remain. So like Justin said, learning to light. If you've got sound in your footage, making sure you're mic'd up properly. I think learning lighting is a really good shout, rather than looking at the camera that you've got.
The only time I would say that there is sort of an exception to that is, there are times in documentary filmmaking where obviously you just don't have the option to light, and what's most important is capturing what's happening, right? And so that's where it's like incredibly useful to have like the FX6, for example, built-in ND, and then that low light capability of that camera. I don't really, as long as you can see the subject, and I think, Jack, I said this to you before, we're talking about noise and stuff like that in footage, and I was saying, look, at the end of the day, if you're interviewing somebody and the footage is noisy as shit, it doesn't matter if what they're saying is super vital to the story, and especially with a documentary, right? But if you have the ability, if you're doing videos for clients in a gym, and you're not making a documentary that's following around Hathor or Eddie, whatever his name is, the UK guy, if you have time to try to set up lighting, then you should try to do it, because in the long run, again, it's not going to make a difference. It's like, sure, your depth of field will be a little shallower and your lower light will be less noisy and all that stuff, but that's why these people are able to make films with a iPhone, because they light it and they make it look nice, and they use the support equipment to do that. It's not about the camera.
Yeah, so tailored technique, I hope that helps. And I think we're in agreement, consensus is focus on your lighting. The ZV-1 is a perfectly good camera. Like I said, I use it on my client shoots. It wouldn't be my main camera, but it could be. I would just be kind of giving up a few things, but you can absolutely do what you're doing, especially I think you're shooting yourself at a gym, so it's perfect. You've got the flip out screen. Invest in some lighting, and best of luck, and hit me up if you need any help on that, because I know you're on the ZV-1 group. So we're going to close things off now, guys, but thank you so much for joining us. Have you got any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
Hang in there, guys. I think that right now, if you can just make it through long enough to kind of sustain, there is going to be a ton of work for everybody. There is the need for content has just gone through the roof, and actually we're living in a great time right now. I think better than ever. Nowadays, the big production studios they're in a bit of a bind. They're having a harder time making content than we can as individuals, and so try to, if you can make it through the next couple months. I think the vaccine is going to start to get around the world, and things will start to come around, and be there and be ready and come forward with some new skills, and keep practicing. And I think this industry is it's growing outrageously right now, so it's a great place to be. This is a good career path to be in right now. I know it's hard during the pandemic to do it, but it's not going anywhere, and if anything, the need and desire for our content is continuing to grow. So hang in there. We're all trying. We're all in the same boat here, and keep making beautiful things. Focus on story.
And Gene, do you have any final thoughts?
Things are going to work out. Just like Justin said, just keep going, and I strongly believe that things soon sooner or later we'll go back to normal, and all of us are going to be ready to just get back on track.
100%. Well, thanks everyone for watching. If you haven't already, drop a like on the stream and subscribe. I'm doing these videos every Thursday, live streams with people from across the industry, across the world, like we've seen today. We've got people from the US, people from Denmark. I'm from the UK. We'll be continuing that every week. And yeah, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Justin and Gene, thanks so much, and take care, guys.
Yeah, Jack, thanks for having us on here, man.
Take care.
Cheers.